Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you a very important Google Sheets formula. It's called import range. Before I jump into showing you what import range is, what is the syntax, etc., let me maybe quickly give you an example of when it is useful to, use import range in your day-to-day work. Let's take a simple example. Let's say you have two data sets, data set 1 and data set 2. And you don't want, and in your data set 1, you only want some team members to have access to that, but you also want to use the data set 2 in your data set 1 for some processing. So what you could do is you could pass along this data set 2 to your team members if they need to work on it as a separate data set, right? And you could import that into your admin data set. So it's almost like two tables, right? And one is an admin table versus one is a working table. And you don't want to give the admin table that has other information to team members who actually contribute to the other working table, data set 2. So you can create a copy of just the data set 2 and give that to them and import that data from there into your system or into your data set A dynamically. So if any changes are made, they will also get automatically or in real time updated into your data set A or the admin data set, right? Which basically means anytime there is a change, you don't need to copy paste information. It will automatically get appended, right? So whenever you come across a use case like this, where you need to create a working sheet that you need to give it to your team members, and then you need to fetch changes from that working sheet into an admin sheet or a dashboard, then that's where you could use import range, right? Now let's learn how you could use import range. In today's agenda, I will show you how to use import range with a cell reference, import where you could use import range to import data from multiple tabs, and import range with a query. So let's start by very simple import range, right? How you could import data. Before I do that, actually, let me show you that I have my data set B, right? Which is my working data set. Let me just refresh this. Now, in this, I have two teams. This is a basketball roster, the example that I've taken. I have two teams, team A and team B, which is my working data set. And this will have changes. And this is my admin data set. I want to import data here. So it's as simple as typing import range, open brackets, spreadsheet URL. Here, you need to specify the spreadsheet from which you're trying to fetch the data. So I'm trying to fetch data from this spreadsheet. So I'm going to copy this and put it in double quotes because that's the syntax, right? Followed by the range string. Now in range string, what you need to do is, because this spreadsheet has multiple tabs, maybe there is also a, let's say, team C tab, right? How does this sheet, your admin sheet, know from where to fetch the data? So you're going to define first the tab name, which is team A, right? Here I have team A, so I'm going to first define that, followed by an exclamation, which in some sense behaves like a delimiter. And then you say that in this team A, what data do you want to fetch? So I have data from column A to D up to 16th row, right? Same thing here as well. So I'm going to say in team A, fetch column A 1 to D 20, right? And then close the double quotes and close the bracket, and you will see the data gets fetched, right? Now, if I make any changes, let me maybe copy one of the player's details from team A to team B to team A. This I just added. You see, this gets added here, right? So that's exactly how import range can be used to import data in a real time. I have already given access to this sheet to fetch data from here, which is why I did that. But the first time you write an import range, and you, let's say, for example, specify a URL, right? Let's say there was another URL that I type in here. It's going to give you an error and it's going to say, please give access. So just give that access and your formula should work, right? So that's how simple it is to use import range. Now let's look at how you can use import range with cell reference. What that means is that instead of having to type in your formula the entire URL, and also to, basically type the tab names manually. You can reference values from a cell. This is very helpful when you're using automation or you're using multiple formulas with one within another, right? So you don't need to specify such a big URL. You can refer you can refer the value through a cell. So I'm going to do exactly that. I already have the URL added here, which is exactly the same URL as this. I'm going to just remove this and I'm going to reference to this cell, right? So I'm going to say this cell. This is my basically the spreadsheet URL. And then if you see the syntax within that for reference, it says URL cell reference, which is this, and then sheet name cell reference. So in this case, my sheet name is added here. So I'm going to say F2, right? Um, because the sheet name is here in F2, team A, right? And because you are concatenating text, so I'm going to add and here and double quotes, I'll specify the range. So I've done nothing but this. I've specified the exact same parameters in just by just referencing to cells, right? I've specified the URL with the cell number F5, right? And I have specified team A and the range uh, by referencing to cell 2, F2 here, which picks the team name and the range, right? So if I do that, you will see so it's sheet name, cell reference, and the range. Uh, uh, uh. So you see, you have to specify the exclamation because that behaves like a delimiter, right? It fetches the data. So you saw first I got an error and then it fetched the data. Now, how does this help? I can change this to team B and it'll fetch the team B data, right? Automatically. So that's how it is helpful to use cell referencing, right? So that's the second thing that we wanted to cover today. Now, third thing, let's come and learn about importing data from multiple tabs. What if I had to import data from both team A and team B at once? How do I do that, right? I'm going to cover exactly that. So let's do exactly what we did before, right? I already have the data from my team A, here team B, right? I already have the data from team A. I want to add team B's data right below this, right? So how I'm going to do this is that I'm going to copy this very detail, right? And I will separate this by a semicolon and paste this here. And now instead of this, let's just change this to, if I change this to team B, right? So I have team A here already because that's team A and team B. And I'm going to press this. Now I get an error. One thing to keep in mind is sometimes Google Sheet will give you an error, although this is the right syntax. But to overcome that error, because this is an array, right? You can just add curly brackets and you see the data set will load, right? So some of you may see without adding curly brackets, it works. And some of you may see that it doesn't work. That's purely because of the regional settings of your Google Sheets, right? So if it's not working, just enter your curly brackets here, right? And I can, instead of doing this here, I can always specify team A here, right? So it's the same syntax. So you see it fetches team A and team B data right below each other, right? So that's the syntax, and that's the way you fetch data from multiple tabs using import range very, very easily. So coming back to the last part of today's video, which is import range with query, right? Now let's assume a use case where uh, your team member is updating all the data, newer data is coming in every day. I'm adding more and more team members. Um, but I don't want to fetch all the data with import range. My team is adding all the data. They're adding they're adding new sets. Um, but I want to filter the data while importing it, right? That is where query is really helpful. And I'll cover query in a separate video, but let's see how query is used, right? So you can type in query data, which is import range. So my data is already covered with the help of import range, comma, type in the query. The format is select. So I'm going to say select all the data. The star function actually defines all the data, where I want to select, let's say, I want to import only data where the height of the player is greater than 80, for example. So I'm going to say column 1. Uh, if you were fetching data from the same sheet, not an external source like basketball roster, you could define the name like height itself, where height or where C is greater than 80. But because you're fetching from an external source, you have to define it like column 1, 2, so on and so forth, right? So I'm going to say greater than 80, and I'm going to close this, and I'm going to fetch this, right? So looks like none of my data sets has a value greater than 80, right? So I'm going to say 70. All right, looks like nothing is greater than 70 as well. Oops, okay, I think I specified the wrong column. It's column 3, right? Because height is in column 3. So it's going to fetch that. Now I'll do the same thing with 80, right? So you see it clearly imports data only that has like players that have height greater than 80, right? So that's how you can also use and filter data with import range while fetching it. An alternative to that is using filter instead of query, right? So you could always, instead of this, you could also use the filter function. And for anybody who's subscribed to this channel, I'd love to learn from you in comments. If you've tried using the filter function, I will use the filter function in a different video and explain that to you in a separate video, right? I hope you found this video helpful. Do subscribe to my channel in case you want to keep learning about new things. Right now, I'm just covering Google Sheets because I just started out. But with time, I'll cover things like Google Analytics, presentations, Excel, so on and so forth. So I hope you found this valuable. Please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.